One of the most famous Latin legal presumptions of law is ignorantia legis neminem excusat, which means ignorance of the law is no excuse. Some of us do appreciate such legal expression, while others do not, on the basis of fairness and unfairness, justness and unjustness, morality and immorality. Whether you know the law or you do not, you are part of the law because the law is made for you and you must know the law. Thus we bring you the legal hour. Actus nemini facit injuria. The act of the law does no one wrong but uphold justice. Good evening, welcome to the Legal Hour show here on Freetown Television Network. You're very fine with me, Abubakar Mara. As always, if you've been one of our glued viewers, you must have now known this is a show that's tries to educate you about the law, what you're supposed to know as citizens of this country about the law, your rights civically, politically, and also it guides you in the confines of the law if your rights are violated and actions that you will take that also will be in the confines of the law. And for this episode, I want to welcome you as you're watching us, and that means you are part of the show. Well, for today's episode, we are going to discuss on sexual violence in Nexus with the law. We have so many perceptions, we have so many notions, so many different concepts about sexual violence, GBV, and some of these opinions could be perfect, could be okay in terms with the law, but some of them could be very much far away from what the law actually seeks to convey on when it comes to sexual violence. And since we're here to educate you about the law and for you to get yourself really equipped with the law, I have with me two eloquent and astute guests that are here in the studio that will help me to educate you on our topic, which is sexual violence in Nexus with the law. I have with me Ms. Wahida sesay, who is a law student of the Qpik College, who is also a deputy organizing secretary of the Law Society of FBC, and she is also an entrepreneur and the CEO and founder of Qpik products. Good evening, welcome to Legal Hour.
Thank you very much for having me.
And next, I have with me on the far right, Mr. Emmanuel, who is a legal and a social commentator. Good evening, welcome to the Legal Hour.
Thank you for having me too.
Alright, you guys are highly welcome. This is the Legal Hour show. Feel comfortable as we discuss trying to educate the mass out there about the law and what is supposed to know, as because like we have this famous presumption that ignorance of the law is no excuse. So like they're supposed to know the law, and this is one platform that we create for them to be aware of the law itself. And I believe we are opportune to have you in our studio to help educate the mass out there about the law. So let me start with Ms. Wahida sesay. Our topic is sexual violence in Nexus with the law. So what could be your students' opinion of this topic?
Okay, so thank you once more for having me. Of course, when we talk about Nexus, it simply means connection, sexual violence in connection with the law. And if I could remember, the UN Secretary General of UN Secretary General, who is Antonio Guterres, made mention one day when he was, giving an open speech that sexual violence is a global pandemic, which means it is not just Sierra Leone's issue, but it's also a global issue. So, like in Sierra Leone, we have laws that serve as an instrument, legal instrument, to suppress, this issue of sexual violence. Of course, we have the Sexual, Violence Act 2012, which has been amended, and of course the Domestic Violence Act. So these are there, in order to ensure that it suppresses the issue of sexual violence. And most of the time, women, of course, and young girls do suffer from this, issue.
All right, thank you very much. Let me just jump to Mr. Keane. So our topic says sexual violence in Nexus with the law. We need a rational opinion of the topic before we actually delve into it.
So the topic itself speaks of the relationship between sexual offenses and the law. Okay, we understand that sexual offenses have been with mankind since pre-medieval times. But, prudent thinkers have thought it fit that the law should be there to make sure that society is organized in a manner of order. Therefore, the law puts a gloss on such acts in society, these sexual offenses. Now, the law makes provision for every facet of life, okay? And sexual offenses is a facet of society. It's a phenomenon that the society is challenged with. But thankfully so, the law is present. And like Wahida has mentioned, we have the Sexual Offences Act of 2012 and of 2019, which, as a matter of fact, puts a gloss on the 2012 Sexual Offences Act, which makes amendments for the short-sightedness of the drafters of the 2012 Act. So we see that provisions have been made for this aspect of society, this phenomena in society which we face as a major challenge. Because believe you me, many women, many young girls are seriously suffering as a result of sexual offenses. But like you've given us this opportunity to make it known to them that there is a law that covers or provides for such a phenomena in society, then definitely with this understanding, they would know the right steps to take, and they should not be shy or be afraid to come to the law and seek for justice with regards to sexual offenses or sexual violence.
Yes, of course. I think I more support your different propositions of the concept of sexual violence. We know it's behavior of sexual nature which could be unwanted by the other person, so it becomes very violent to that particular person. Yeah, and of course we have so many different laws before we now have the SOA, the Sexual Offences Act of 2012 and 2019 as amended. We have the CEDAW Maputo protocols, we have the Convention of the Rights of a Child, we have so many laws that actually govern and protect women and young guys. But for this discussion, I want us to get limited to the SOA, that is the Sexual Offences Act of 2012 and 2019 as amended. And when we use the word sexual violence, most of us out there sometimes think it's just about you've been raped. And based on the laws that we have, there are so many ways, so many means that one can actually violate other sexually, like assault, harassment, indecence, and so many other stuff. But first, I want us to actually talk on the issue of consent, because I believe when it comes to sexual violence, one of the key issues that has to be dealt with is consent. So, Ms. Wahida, what can you say of consent?
Okay. When you look at Section 2 of the Sexual Offences Act 2012 as amended, clearly talks about consent. And consent, to my own understanding, simply means agreement by choice. I have to agree. If you propose that I want to have a sexual intercourse with you or with me, then I have to give consent. And that should be made under, without no duress. I need not to be coerced for me to give my consent, because that's a choice. But however, going forward, the law also limited that a child under 18 years, is not made or is not permitted to give consent. You understand? So even if I am a married person, if I do not give consent for any sexual activity or intercourse, then you need not to coerce me. My man need not to coerce me. So if you do that, means you have violated or you have worked in contrary to that particular act. So that's my general understanding about consent. I have to be free, I have to agree. I shouldn't be under any duress to make my agreement or to give my agreement.
So Mr. King, as Wahida has just said, that you have to agree. It's your free. It's a choice that should be made without you being under duress or any forceful means. Okay, I believe to some extent I agree with her based on Section 2 of the SOA 2012. But however, now Mr. King, let's say what in a situation, perhaps your wife, which you actually married legally, agrees to actually have sex with you, and then moving further, she expresses perhaps good conduct that it's enough, it's okay. And then you perhaps also try to give more force, it's like no, she has seized the consent. So could that be termed as rape?
Yes. You see, with the issue of consent, it is a bit more fluid than meets the eye. You know, it's not a one-size-fits-all a thing. With consent, even with the scenario that you've just made, a married woman has the liberty of saying no to sexual advances. Okay? This could be a situation in which, let's say for the purposes of clarity, that she is not in the mood that particular day, or she doesn't feel like.
First,
but
she was in the mood.
In
Or
the
like,
mood.
yeah, but as the
Yes,
process
yes,
like,
yes.
No, I'm tired.
If you look, if you look under section 2 further, the subsection of section 2, which is subsection 2, and its related provisos, you'll see that there's a provision that says if even the person was in agreement initially, but makes a change of heart, or changes his or her mind, I do not want to continue with his sexual advancement.
So
then
basically, do you think section 5 of the SOA is very much appreciable? Wherein, she's your married woman, not so. And it's like, reason why you basically married her. She's not,
yes, and you have that particular
Yes.
drive,
you can
like,
choose your
yeah.
marriage
the
as
fact
a
that
defense
the
of
fact
your
that you've
husband.
married the person does not give you a free pass as to having sex as and when you feel like with the person. The person agrees to marry you does not necessarily mean that the person agrees to having sex with you all the time.
Okay,
And the law
but that
protects.
seems disadvantageous to we the men, not so.
why do you say that?
Why?
Yeah,
Also,
because basically we have this stereotype that women cannot rape. Not so.
We
but-
cannot.
Okay, well, of course, I know what the touch there. Okay, so can you rape as a woman? Yeah? Can you rape a man?
No, because I do believe the man has
So if
all
you
the
cannot rape,
muscles.
it means
and-
that section is
Yes.
somehow the men or disadvantageous to the men.
okay, I want to hold a different view from the fact that a woman cannot rape. You see, rape has to do with penetration.
penetration, yeah.
And most times penetration is occasioned
Yeah,
by.
but even at that,
The
it
men.
has to do with the consent. Now, whether you penetrate or not, as long as there is no consent, it's been termed as rape.
Let me
Because
land,
section 6, it
please.
tells you that.
Let me land, because I'm trying to make a point here.
Yeah.
Someone can be penetrated using an object,
Yes.
like a sharp object, like a stick, or
Yeah,
someone can
and
use
some people
banana
have,
or
a very
fingers.
sharp,
You know.
You can use an object.
How are you going to
Of course, yeah,
demonstrate?
you
So even women can rape.
How?
Yes.
Land.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
draw
of course,
a
it's
scenario.
very
Let's say we
interesting.
have like 4 women who want to have a sexual intercourse with a young man. 4 women.
For women.
They overpower the young man and forcefully get their way with the young man. The young man did not consent, but these 4 women had their way with the young man. That constitutes rape also, because, mind you, the working element here is consent. And the young man did not consent, but because 4 women against 1 young man,
Overpowered.
they
the young
overpower
man.
the young man.
Yeah.
And some form of penetration also happens in a way. So 4
But the
women and a young
penetration
man.
comes from the man.
Yes,
Oh.
but not necessarily so.
Of
Because
course,
they
you
are
can
under
use an
duress.
object.
Because a woman can use an object to penetrate
Yeah,
the young man.
really, I want us to circle around consent, okay?
Consent.
Okay.
Now, Ms. Mother, let's say
It's a gray area.
the
actually.
man and the woman, okay, are actually in that process of having like that intercourse.
Okay.
And then the man says, I'm tired. But like the woman is in the mood, she wants to do it. And perhaps she will force the man to do it. That could be termed as rape. Because the man, actually has expressed that he's tired, so he's not in the mood anymore. And the man is trying to force her way in just to have that particular intercourse. So I believe it could be termed as rape because like there is no consent anymore. The man has sees also with no consent.
You know, I believe the major challenge with women raping men is the fact that the woman does not have the organ to penetrate the man. But the woman can use an object. But in the instant scenario,
is the consent of the man.
yes, but in the instant
So they are
scenario that you just raised,
Yes.
that the woman is in the mood and the man is not in the mood, it does not suffice, because what then does the woman use to rape the man?
Of course, yeah. Ms. Wahida, I believe the punitive measure that has been put in place by the SOE 2012 was that if somebody's been found guilty of rape, it's not less than 5 years, not about 15 good years. But as we see in section 4, I guess, of the 2019 as amended, it says not less than 15 years to life imprisonment. So do you think such sanction or such punitive measure is appropriate for such kind of criminal responsibility?
It is, of course, because rape itself has been categorized as a criminal offense, and besides, it's not an issue between the victim and the offender, but it's about the offender and the state. Okay, so criminalizing it in that manner, especially increasing the term or the penalty in terms of serving his sentence, then I think it's appropriate. It is, because it is a criminal activity and it comes against the state itself. It's not about
yes.
It comes against
the state.
But look at how huge it is now for life imprisonment just for rape. I think it's, for me, it's not so fair.
But it can result to
let me
that
come.
as well.
But that should have been conditional. It depends on the circumstance.
You see, the laws have backgrounds. What then is the function of the law in society? One of its major functions is deterrent.
Deterrent.
Yes, for people to look at the act and decide not to do it because of the consequences they will suffer as a result of the act that's been committed. So, you see, society has evolved over time. And if you look at the Sexual Offences Act of 2012, like you rightfully mentioned, the punitive measures that were there were not adequate punishments enough for the said act. Now we see rape is on the rampant, almost all over the place. It is now a pandemic, so to say, because all over Africa, people experience rape and other forms of sexual violations. Therefore, the authorities need to stamp their authority as to making sure that they discourage people from doing such an act by putting stringent and draconian laws in place or measures in place to make sure that people look at the act and say, if I do this act, this is what I will suffer. Therefore, they are discouraged from doing such an act.
Okay. So since we are discussing on sexual violence and Nexus with the law, and basically we have so many violations sexually, it's not just rape, we have assault, harassment, indecent exposure, vandalism, and so many others. Okay. So let's discuss. Let me have your opinions on indecent assault as was established in Section 7 of the SOE, as it's being a violation sexually.
Okay, so indecent assault, of course, has to deal with sexual assault, like putting the person in duress or harassing the person, for the person to engage in sexual intercourse with you. So let me say, there comes consent again. If I say no, then you think it's appropriate, maybe to bully me, and maybe to attack me, or maybe to, assault me in such a way wherein you gain, what you want, like having sexual intercourse or sexual, penetration, with me. So I think the laws are there, as my colleague rightly says. So these are all there to discourage or to serve as a deterrent, because you have consequences. So if you act, in contrary to that, then you have consequences to face.
Of course, Mr. King, indecent assault as in Section 7 of the SOA, we also realize that it's punitive measure, and the law actually put in place for such is like not 5 million euros or not above 3 years imprisonment. Okay, like before we come to its punitive measure, let's discuss on its what circumstances as legal commentator. So what can you commentate on that legal or like indecent assault?
Indecent assault is a situation where someone tries to force himself on an unwilling person. You see, the operating element is consent. The other person has to be willing for there to be consent for you two to enjoy the sweetness of, you know, that thing. But in a situation,
Sweetness, I love the adjective.
yes, in a situation where the person refuses and you use brutal means of forcing yourself on that particular individual, then that in itself is indecent assault.
Okay. All right. So do you also think that what the law actually provides for indecent assault, like you being paid 5 million or not above 3 years, is adequate for such kind of sexual?
Yes, with indecent assault, there are times when even it doesn't have to go to the level of penetration. If even you force yourself and the person was able to withstand your advances, and you did not succeed, the person still has an action to bring against you. So let's say you did not succeed in penetrating the person, but you assaulted the person, you made sexual advances brutally, and the person brings an action against you. I think the punitive measure is appropriate under the circumstances.
Okay. So basically, let's move on to harassment. So viewers, this is the Legal House show, and we are discussing on sexual violence in Nexus with the law, and we are specified on the Sexual Violence Act, or Offences Act of 2012 and 2019 as amended, and we are here to educate you on sexual violation, that it's not just rape. There are many violations, there are many issues that we can pick out to be sexual violation when it comes to the Sexual Offences Act of 2012 and as amended 2019. And I have with me Ms. Wahida MCC, who is a law student of Farmer College, and Emmanuel, who is a legal and social commentator. We have discussed on rape, on consent, indecent assault. Now we want to talk a bit on harassment, which is also a violation sexually. So I also start with the lady because they always say, stop harassing me, why are you harassing me? And you hear a man says, stop harassing me.
As a matter of fact, men love to be harassed.
Of course, yeah,
Really?
they love to be harassed.
Really?
Of course, yes. There's some of you guys, but I don't love to.
Well, when we look
Yes,
at, so
yeah,
when we want to
harassment.
talk about harassment, you know, it comes from someone who is in charge or in authority over the other person. All right, like for example, maybe let me say for example, I'm in an office with my boss, and maybe he has been, you know, looking, you know, sexually, like sexual harassment, harassing me, you know, maybe, you know, like give me your number and start calling me,
Yeah, frequent
and
calling you.
frequent calls and
Going to your house, touch your
messages,
consent.
yes, you know, most of that. So there comes sexual harassment. So again, it's a crime. It's a crime, of course. It's a crime, and the measures that was put forward by the act itself. If someone is convicted, you know, for sexual harassment, then I think that person has to pay something like 20 million if found guilty. So it's also an harassment.
So Mr. King,
sexual
Yes.
harassment.
I'm having issues with the punitive measures, yeah? With the penalties that have been put in place for some of these violations sexually, yeah? So how can somebody harass you that tries to express how he feels about you? Of course, you are beautiful, you are talented, you are
You said
promising.
harassment.
Of course,
It's
yes.
not
yeah.
a normal thing.
Yeah, of course, yes. And based on that, now one could be attracted to such and then start to harass you. They are calling you, let me, no all those stuff now. And then when you actually do sort of thing, it's like you have to pay 20 million euros for not above 5 years, I
And
guess.
it can be as a threat as well. Maybe, you know, if you don't do this, this is what I'm going to do to you. So yes, there comes harassment.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah, so
the
Mr. King, yes,
appropriate.
what do you have to say?
Harassment is also fluid. It's also very, very fluid. And the law makes sure it captures all the ambiguities of sexual harassment. Now, on the surface, people will only think that, well, sexual harassment, it did not actually tamper with the other person. But sexual harassment is equally as dangerous as rape and sexual penetration, such that with sexual harassment, this is an individual who goes more than the extra mile to make sure an unwilling person sees him or accepts him. Yes. Now, like you've made mention of phone calls, text messages, like a stalker. If you want a classic example of sexual harassment, you should see the movie Obsession. In this movie, this particular individual keeps stalking the lady. No, it was the lady, it's the reverse. The lady stalks the man.
Wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
To such a point that she ended up killing the man's wife.
Wow.
Yes. So these are some of the effects of harassment. Some people cannot control their emotions. They will not stop at calling your phones. They will not stop at texting you. They will come around your area. They will linger around. If you are living in a fenced house, they will linger around. They will try every single trick in the book to make sure they get in contact with you. And most often than not, with sexual offenses cases, as has been proven over time, these people can be violent and jealous of your actual lover. Because let's say there's a situation where you have somebody else, but the person that is stalking you or is harassing you, you do not have time for them. So they devise plans and strategies to make sure that they get that other person out of the way so that you see them for the advances that they are making. Therefore, I am in agreement with you that the punitive measures do not suffice under the circumstances, because the law has to put such a deterrent to sexual harassment such that the offender or the suspect or the accused person or whosoever is a would-be sexual harassment person should think twice about stalking someone or actually harassing someone by the weight of the measure, the punitive measure that the law institutes.
All right. Viewers, we are discussing on the topic sexual violence in nexus with the law, I mean in connections with the law. And I have with me Wahida Sesay, who is the CEO of Qpik product and is also the deputy organizer and secretary of the Law Society of Public College. I also have with me Mr. Emmanuel, who is a legal and social commentator, and I am your host, Kamara. Let's go for a short break and be back and then continue with our discussions.
Things they change and you're not too sure of waiting tomorrow go look like. You need bank will go there with you so you go able to map strong. Now that's make with even all the lockdown and travel ban. You don't need for Yagba because RC Bank Day for help you. With we mobile and online payment system, you no need for worry one. And with we RC Bank SIM Copper and Visa card, your life not get locked down. Because you go to carry on for make your payment and do your shopping with no stress, but with ease and comfort. So you see, now you go able to do the correct social distancing with IC Bank online platform. The same way no more when you do your transaction inside with bank building them. You can print your bank statements, check your account balance, or even make transfer or payments. With IC Bank, you back don't cover.
Doro World Traveler, how is your Miami vacation going?
Fine, babe. I'll be back next week and I've bought you a lot of things.
Well, I hope the designer bag you promised is included. No excuse this time.
That expensive bag? Babe, I am now in Malaysia.
UBA cards work from Moscow to Malaysia, from Malaysia to Miami. Bros, you can't escape this time.
Hell! Babe, are you there? I can't hear you again, oh. Your line is breaking. Hello? Hello? Wherever you travel in the world, don't go without your UBA card. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Welcome back to the Legal Hour Show here on Freetown Television Network, 35 with me, Abubakar Mara. And our topic of discussion for this episode is sexual violence in nexus with the law. And due to that, I have with me Ms. Wahida Sesay, who is a law student of the Public College, deputy organizing secretary of Law Society of FBC, and she is also an entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Qpik products. And also I want to name Mr. Emmanuel, who is a legal and social commentator. Once more, our topic of discussion is sexual violence in Nexus with the law, and I'm your host, Mubakar Mara. So we continue with our discussion. Yes, we've discussed so well about some of the offenses that we can realize sexually, like assault, harassment. I also want to take just a short look into voyeurism, yeah, as established in section 15 of the SO 2012. So, Ms. Wahida, voyeurism. So what can you say about such an offense? Because believe me, most of us or most people out there do not really know that voyeurism could be an offense. Some don't even know the word voyeurism. So what could that be? Like they find it's very common amidst them. Like it's like voyeurism, that it's very like weird, very bizarre to our ears. So like Mr. King, what can you actually say about voyeurism as established in section 15 of the SOA?
Yes, for the purposes of clarity, I would love to refer to the SOA 2012, section 15. A person who, for the purpose of obtaining sexual gratification, observes another person performing a sexual act in private without the consent of that other person, and knowing that the other person does not consent to being so observed. Okay, when we were growing up,
when you, of course, are you and your friends?
Yes. When we were growing up, myself and my acquaintances, my friends, we used to call our area the hood. Actually, we had guys who we knew that they have the tendency of committing this act of voyeurism. It is a situation where, let's say, someone is in a restroom or in a bathroom or bathtub or something, and someone is taking a peek at them. Outside the knowledge of the person.
So you did that?
No, I didn't do that, but I have said we knew some of the guys who would engage in.
Were your friends.
Yes,
and they used to say,
and when we were
friend, and I would tell you who you are.
And when we were growing up,
you must have done so. I could not sometimes.
It was really common among.
Interesting. When we were growing up, we did not know that this was actually a sexual offense. You see, this is the trouble. That is why they say ignorance of the law is not a defense, but it is easier said than done. The reality is such that people engage in certain things they do not understand the implications of. Like for instance, there was a case of a pupil of the Annie Walsh who was recorded while she was enjoying herself with someone, something she shouldn't be doing. But the act in itself that the person did could be voyeurism, because these people did not have any knowledge of the fact that someone was recording them. Yes, so this in essence is what voyeurism is about. And of course it is a sexual offense.
And also we noticed that in Sierra Leone, sexual offenses or violence is mostly being done not even against women but girls.
Yes.
Most of the time. Yeah, and presently we have one of the famous cases of a child being raped. But I could not affirm that she has been raped because we have different stories about the situation. So like, unless we have to have the actual fact of what happened before we can discuss or affirm on how we think on it. But anyway,
yes, quickly, let me just learn quickly.
Yeah, of course, we are coming here on that particular.
Yes, before we go to the aspects of the sexual offenses against children, let me just educate some of my guys in the hood.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Bestiality is also a sexual offense. Yes, because there were situations wherein we had guys who would make love to dogs.
Of course.
Yes. Yes. They would do stuff like this. Yes. And they will encourage dogs to do likewise to human beings. So this also is a sexual offense, it's a criminal offense, and it's punishable by law.
And I think also reason has to be, a determinant factor wherein the other person can be triggered. to have sexual intercourse, because having seen the nakedness of that particular
Yes.
person, it can trigger the individual to, maybe rape or sexually assault.
Of course,
the
yeah,
person.
of course, yeah, yeah, can influence the mind.
Yes.
And that's it. So like, now let's take a look at violence sexually against children. And I'm really happy that the law makes provision for children so far. And Section 19 talks about sexual penetration against
Yes.
children. And a child cannot give consent. So you being an advocate, Ms. Wahida, of course, I've known you, yeah, that this, yeah, for this period, of course, yeah, I'm an advocate. So what can actually Jenny say about sexual penetration against children?
Well, first of all, we have to define, according to the Act, who a child is.
Okay.
And looking at Section 4 of the Sexual Offences Act, a child is someone who is, under age 18. So being under age 18 means you're a child, okay, and you cannot give consent. That was made clear. You cannot give consent. So if you have, sexual penetration with a child under 18, then you have committed, sexual assault or sexual violence or rape. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
You have committed a rape. So, of course, we know the famous case now. That is Khadija, the deceased, and we want to say, may her soul rest in perfect peace. It's really disheartening to see a young, beautiful, innocent child, being assaulted.
Supposed to be in prison for life, and that person he's just been accused, and everybody, or a person being accused of a criminal offense has to presume innocent or to be found guilty by a competent court of law. I think I've seen in section 23, subsection 4 of our Constitution, Act number 6 of 1991. And this person has been accused of who they say raped Khadija. And like he has been condemned to life imprisonment, to death. So as a legal commentator, and also a social one, because it has to do with legal and social, of course, concept. So is this fair? Is this appropriate?
No, it is not. And I am one of the proponents on social media who has been telling people to calm down. There is so much public outrage about this issue that people have lost common sense. When these things happen, it is natural for people to feel enraged and vexed. But you have to do whatever you do within the confines of the law. The law caters for everything in society. So you have to use the right procedures and processes that the law prescribes. You have to use the right institutions of the state to seek redress when these things happen. In the instant case of the deceased Khadija, I followed social media religiously when all the rights groups in this country, rightfully so, asked for justice to be served in that particular case. Yes, justice should be served in that particular case, but justice should be served within the rules of the law. It's not a situation where we have to use jungle justice on the said accused. Like you rightfully rightfully mentioned, we cannot kill the accused person when he's at an accused stage of the investigation. We cannot do that because there is a likelihood that the courts might come to a decision that the person is to be acquitted of all charges. What if the court comes to such a conclusion and then you have this person in your custody, you've beaten him, you've broken his ribs and you've disfigured him, and then in the end the person turns out to be innocent? Then I have news for you, because I am coming from the school of thought of male chauvinism. I am a man. I feel what all men feel nowadays with regards to Sexual Offences Act of 2012 and amendment of the 2019. We have a situation where we are disadvantaged. Therefore, an opportunity has been presented to some ladies who have ulterior motives to being vexatious and fictitious claims against us.
Oh, yeah.
That he made sexual advances against me which were inappropriate. And because of the claims and because of our claims which may be preposterous and unfounded, I'll be sent to Pademba Road. Now let me tell you how the process works. When once you are accused of sexually assaulting someone or violating their sexual rights or something of the sort, what happens is, in your first appearance before the court, you are sent down to the Pademba Road Remand Center, because when the case is ongoing, you'll be sent in as a remandee. So you'll be one of the remand inmates in there.
Okay.
So now you are sent to Pademba Road as, for something you did not even do, or it may turn out that this is a vexatious claim. This is a case of malicious prosecution. So the news I want to bring to gentlemen is the fact that you can bring a case in the instant scenario. You can bring a case against such a person under torts for malicious prosecution of a vexatious claim. So after the case may have come to an end and the court finds you innocent and acquit you of all charges, you can use that acquittal against the person who brings the action, the action against you. Yes, because it has been proved that.
So that is the major reason why we are still advocating, for forensic laboratories, so that it can support corroborative, evidence to prove that the man's semen was found inside the woman's vagina or the girl's vagina, so that can ease the
so
the
I
process.
think this is one of the reasons why we are having issue with this present case at
Yes,
hand.
yes.
Because there is no clear evidence
No
of
clear
that
evidence.
he really did the act. And above all, before the girl died, I believe that the act of rape was being committed like a week long before she died. So someone must be there to realize how the girl was behaving, how she was feeling. Nothing comes up until she has died, then the issue actually raised up. It's like, to some extent, people don't even know the law. Because for instance, we are being united socially, that we need justice. Of course, yes, we need justice for such a wicked act. But however, if now it has to go to due judicial process, and it takes time, and some might say they are delaying justice, and justice delay is justice denied, and therefore there is no justice.
Yes.
And I quote, I always say, well, the reason why they make us do the one must
yes, compromise.
Yeah, but law is different, because also justice violent is justice varied by
yes. If you go through some of the principles of the criminal law, there is such a thing as a chain of causation.
Chain of causation.
When something happens, there is a chain. You have factual and you have legal causation. You have to examine all of these things. What actually occasioned the death of this particular child? Was it as a result of rape, or as the autopsy is now showing that strangulation, or because she had a problem with her spine? What could have happened? What is the legal cause of that person? Because by matter of fact, it could be proven that someone actually raped or penetrated the child. But did that in itself cause the death of the child? Did the child die as a result of female gender?
It is a crime.
Of course, it is a crime. We are not excusing rape. But you have to use the principles of the law to arrive at a justiciable outcome. Justice should not only be served, it should be seen to be served. And now there is also one other phenomenon I want to address with the social media outrage with regards to this issue. When these things happen, there is so much outrage on social media, casting the suspect or the culprit to the doldrums. Everyone is now castigating this particular individual. But then, in a situation where the court finds this particular individual innocent or acquits the individual of all the crimes, we want it also to come to social media to clear the name of this particular individual. Because imagine the stigmatization it will cause.
Also based on that, I did searching for one of the SME 2012 actually criminalize such act to publicize the image of the victim. And here we realize that so many people have actually publicized the girl's image, everything so far, and that is criminal.
Of course it is criminal.
Okay? And we have these
But
organizations.
it says victim, so deceased. Let me just learn from you, my senior colleague.
Disease, okay?
Yes, deceased. So because when you try to, you know, like not to disclose the particular identity of the victim, then maybe there is a tendency for that person maybe to be part of the existing society. But she is now a deceased.
Yes.
So does the law also, you know, covers that?
Is there a situation, now the question you should ask yourself, is there a situation where the law makes exception in a case where the person where the victim is a deceased? There is no exception.
There is no exception.
There is no exception. So because there is no exception, whether deceased or not, the person is still a victim.
She was a victim.
Yes, you cannot publicize such a content on social media.
So
of course, in itself, it is a
action
crime.
supposed to be taken against those who are publicizing the image of such a girl.
But of course, if the law criminalizes it,
No, I
then
think that should be a recommendation.
Of course, because
You can't say the law does not make any provision, you know, for exception, being a victim and a deceased. That's a loophole. It can serve as
of course,
an
now
exception
we
or
agree.
recommendation.
We agree that it is a lacuna, but the law is the law.
Yes.
The very first question I believe you answered as a law student in the philosophy of law class. Is it philosophy in year one?
Yes, year one.
Yes.
Law is law discourse.
Law is law discourse. Yes. So that question, now this is for any would-be students of that. That question simply means that the position of the law is as the law is written.
And you should apply it as it is.
Whether the law is good or it's bad, the law that is in black and white is the law. Until otherwise an amendment or a repeal takes place, the law is the law.
And we have these big organizations out there that are campaigning that justice must be served. We need justice. Justice must be done. And these are the same organizations who are actually publicizing the image of this victim. That's so. And as an organization whose focus is to protect or prevent girls from being sexually violated, they're supposed to know the laws that govern such kind of actions, and yet they are propelling such kind of criminal activity out there.
Now, I believe this is the essence of such a program, because we have dealt with the issue of ignorance of the law is not a defense. So therefore, I believe many people do this out of ignorance. They do not know. But it is criminal to do something like that. If you publicize the victim in a sexual offense charge or in a situation of sexual violation, then you have committed a crime. And if an action is brought against you, you will answer for that.
Even based on that, we have not seen any law enforcer, we have not seen the government or those who are the law custodians actually maybe give out a notice that what you guys are doing, it's error, it's against the law. Like, so what's going on in Sierra Leone? What's happening? Like, we have all laws and the law enforcers are not doing their job, but this is against the law.
I think,
as my colleague guidelines says, you know, that's why we have this program, and maybe, you know, for it to reach the appropriate authorities, you know, because maybe they have, you know, forgotten their duties or responsibility. So this program, this platform can serve, you know, as a way to communicate or to remind them of what they need to be, you know, to be doing. So
yes, and also the CID, the Criminal Investigations Department, put out a notice encouraging people not to do stuff like that. But that was after the public outrage. You know, they would look at the severity of the crime that they have committed, because you know, people will not understand. Out of outrage, it's for something good. This crime that they committed is for something good. So you have to look at the intent of what they were trying to achieve. They were trying to get justice for a deceased sexual offense victim. So because of that, they committed a crime which they did not know they committed. So the police excused them and concentrated on their
we're supposed to have a forensic lab for such kind of occurrence that will just take place in our society, and we don't have any. So I believe, even though I think it's the issue is now in the investigation, I believe. But however, we noticed that the Defense Council, they actually gave out a notice that they are actually calling on to have an international autopsy. Now the ones that have been given out in our countries, like they are not in agreement, they are not unanimous, they have different stories, like they need an international autopsy for them to actually prove that indeed the accused is responsible for certain acts, which is very much condemned by the people, or also by law. So, yeah, so
yes.
I think that's, go ahead, Kayode.
If I am to make a contribution on what you just said, it is tricky because once a trial is ongoing, we cannot comment on the merits, the facts of that particular case. That in itself is a crime. Okay, but we can just speak broadly to the issues surrounding that case. So if the defense team thinks that it is in their best interest to get the autopsy from an independent source, then it's a way to go, because we want to see justice served in the instant case.
So in other words, we are recommending that we need to have those particular structure, like forensic lab and IIT system, to actually fast track such issues in the country.
We need to, because rape, of course, it has become a culture now. Every now and then, we have reports, of rape. So it will be prudent, for government organizations, donors, to ensure we have forensic laboratories cut across, not just Freetown, but cut across. So that will help, to ease, like for us, for the law not to be undermined, or justice not to be undermined. Just like you rightly said, maybe yes, now we have, concluded that the guy, or the accused might be, convicted, or maybe, and later, it turns out the accused is innocent. So it brings doubt to us back. It brings doubt to the public. But if there is an established forensic laboratories, then I think that will ease the process itself.
Of course, yeah. And of course, we've talked about rape, not so, but there is one key aspect. Yeah. Also, the law makes provision for when a child rapes a child. Of course, I will say rapes because a child cannot take consent. So even though both of them actually consented, so it's still a rape. But so, and looking at SOA that was amended, I think in section 2, paragraph 1 says that such a child will be convicted for not less than 5 years and not above 15 good years. Well, do you want to comment on that? Like, for me, it's not too cool with me, but both children, they lack the mercy, I would say.
Well, according to my, criminal knowledge, that a child cannot commit rape, but can aid or abet,
yes.
or abet in rape.
Yeah, but in this situation, it's both of them.
Both of them.
Yes,
so.
and it's against the law. And like, if that happens, such child would be convicted of like not less than 5 years and not above 15 good years. Above 18, I think that's the more. Like, let's have your opinions on that.
This is a tricky situation.
Yeah.
It is really very tricky because when you say child, legally a child is defined as someone under the age of 18.
18, yes.
But for the purposes of this act and this particular law, a child is one that is below 10. For the purposes of this particular discourse that you just yes, this is a child that is under 10 years. Okay, and this,
let's just say below 18 itself.
Below 18.
Below 18.
Now listen, below 18,
yeah.
there is what is known as the principle of Dolai in Qpik.
Yeah,
now,
discretion.
When the child is 14, when the child is 14 to 18,
yeah, we are coming here. Let's just
yes,
look on the SOA 2019. Yeah?
Yes.
Like it says a child, and I believe section 4 defines a child in the SOA
yes,
as a person below 18.
Under the age of 18.
The Child Rights Act of 2007, you are also below 18. Right? So, but however, if those who are under 18, they are being considered as a child or children, commit such an act, they have sex, and they cannot give consent, that could be termed as rape. And the law says if that happens, so the child will be convicted of not less than 5 years and not above 15 good years.
Yes, this is what I said.
It's outrageous
that
to me.
In itself, it's really tricky and it's very difficult to come to an opinion on this particular one because both of them are children, and if they cannot form criminal intent, children cannot generally form criminal intent.
And that means this law is also against the Child Rights Act of 2017.
Yes,
also,
that's exactly why. If you read the act all, it will tell you that the Child Rights Act,
as opposed,
yes,
yeah, the CRC,
is a notwithstanding.
yes.
So if you see the not anywhere you see notwithstanding, it means it's also
repealed.
telling that
Yeah,
that one is
that's
repealed,
yeah.
that particular one. So in this instant situation, it's very difficult to say whether a child can rape a child. To my understanding, both of them cannot form a criminal intent. Neither can both of them give consent. Then you have one child overpowering the other, and it constitutes rape.
Yeah, it's very tricky. Yeah, so difficult to comment on. Well, viewers, you're watching the Legal Hawaii on Freetown Television Network. You're on 5 with me, Abubakar Mara. And our topic of discussion is sexual violence and nexus with the law. So now, I believe you must now know that violence, sexual, is not just about sex. We have different violence. We have different violations like indecent, assault, harassment, and many others so far. And I have with me Ms. Wahida MCC and Emmanuel who have helped me to educate you out here about the law when it comes to sexual violence, taking into consideration the Sexual Offences Act of 2012 and 2019 as amended. Time is now against us, so every good thing must come to an end. Like we have less than 5 minutes to close. Of course, we have actually eaten some of the time that we're supposed to consume earlier. So like, of course, what's going to be on last 30 minutes? Yeah, let me start with Wahida. Perhaps you have some advice, recommendations, words of inspirations out there to young ones, to government, to politicians. Yeah.
So I just want to make some recommendations. One has to deal with the forensic laboratory or laboratories, and that is really needed now. It is. And secondly, we really need to resuscitate or capacitate the ministry, because looking at Domestic Violence Act, gives mandates to the ministry to ensure, a victim is given free treatment and of course a safe home. So I'm really recommending that organizations and even the government itself must really do enough or do well, to the ministry to ensure it's, gives out its responsibility in a very appropriate way. And of course, looking at Ghana's Sexual Offences Act also made provision wherein they set up a fund, domestic violence, victim of domestic violence, support fund. This fund normally goes to victims that do suffer, domestic violence or sexual assault. So I'm making that recommendation. And also my motivational word we go to the parents out there that they should, treat their kids well. They should be there, and it should be an open talk, like parents with their children. They should talk things, issues, so that they can, in another way, to motivate them not to go out in the street. Tell them, don't be shy. Tell them, not allow a man, put penis by you, not allow a man put finger by you, I quote. When man touch you here, they complain. Make sure say you tell your parents. So yeah, so that's my kind of
Wahida MCC, the Deputy Organizer Secretary of the Law Society of Fabrica. She's also a law student, an entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of Qpik products. I think I need some of your products, but
you have
because,
to.
I really need to because
Yes.
yes, Mr. Emmanuel King, I tend to be a servant for this episode. Like King, yes, sir, what's going to be your
Okay,
last
I want to first of all speak directly to the parents of boys, male children.
Boys.
Okay, so if you are parents of male children, please train your child in such a way that he respects women. Train your child in such a way that it does not fall prey of this very draconian law. Trust me when I tell you, this is one of the most fearsome laws we have now in the country. The Sexual Offences Act of 2012 and of 2019 as amended. There are a lot of sexual offenses which many young people do not understand or know how they work. There are certain practices that we've done as young people which we did not know we are subject to sexual offenses, but they are actually criminal sexual offenses, from rape, penetration, bestiality, voyeurism, indecent exposure. And I also want to say that people who are in the habit of committing sexual acts in front of children are also committing an offense. So if you are a boyfriend and a girlfriend who are in the habit of, making sexual advances on each other in front of your younger siblings, of course that is a criminal sexual offense. And if you are a lady who wants to seduce a young man, you dress inappropriately, it's subject to indecent exposure. There are ways that you can expose your body that can get someone aroused and put them in a sexual mood. That in itself is indecent exposure, and it is a criminal sexual offense under the laws of this country. Also, I want to speak quickly to our society as a whole. When these things happen, we have to naturally respond to them with anger. But our anger has to be measured. We have to follow due processes and keep our actions within the confines of the law, because we cannot advise the public to kill an accused person or to beat an accused person mercilessly. We have laws for that. When we have an accused person, we hand over that particular accused person to the police. They are competent enough. There are provisions of the law which are set aside as to how the police should handle a suspect or an accused person in cases of this nature. Therefore, I advise everyone to keep their calm, for there is a law.
There is.
Like Thomas Hobbes postulates, a society without laws will be brutish, nasty, short, and chaotic. But because we have law, the law presents order for us. So let us keep our faith in the Lord.
Thank you very much for being with us and for actually helping educating, enlightening the mass audience about this particular concept, sexual violence, when it comes to the law. Well, viewers, this is the Legal Hour Show, and you can always follow us on our Facebook page, Legal Hour TV Show, on YouTube, Legal Hour FTN, and this show seeks to help you be aware of the laws that govern your conduct within the society of civil unit and even out of civil unit. Also help you to explore and discover your rights civically and politically. And I've been your host, Mubakar Maras. This is how we come to the end of this episode. I want to say thank you to my producer, Mr. Rapta, the head of control room, and those who actually helped me to educate you out there technically. So this is how we say goodbye. Till we meet again for next episode. I've been your host once more, Abubakar Mara. Thank you very much.
One of the most famous Latin legal presumptions of law is ignorantia legis neminem excusat, which means